Hello and welcome to Competology Academy, and today we are going to discuss about the Uniform Civil Code. And here it is in news nowadays quite obviously because the government is going to introduce the Uniform Civil Code. Already the talks about these things have started, and because of that many of the religious groups, minority groups, many of the religious jurists, etc. have started to criticize this initiative, and that is why we are going to discuss in this video. This is going to be a complete discussion on the Uniform Civil Code, and here we will discuss about what is Uniform Civil Code, thereafter why it is necessary and how it will change the status of the women in the society of different religious groups, as well as in which countries already the Uniform Civil Code of their own structure. It doesn't matter that they should have the Uniform Civil Code according to the Indian sense, whatever is their local social structure, socio-economic structure, political structure, religious structure. Based on that, many of the countries already have the Uniform Civil Code. So in which countries the Uniform Civil Code already exists, that we will discuss, and what has been done so far to introduce the Uniform Civil Code, what kind of efforts that have already been made to introduce the Uniform Civil Code since independence, or if we will go before independence, then we will come to know that during the British era also, the initial start of the judicial system in the civil and the criminal matters was based on Manusmriti and Sharia laws, and the different religious groups were being adjudicated according to their own religious culture and the religious laws, personal laws. Like the Europeans were under the modern laws which were applicable in Europe, while the Muslim community was under the Sharia law, and as we all know, the Indian community was in under the Manusmriti, and the judges as well as the court for these laws for the adjudicating the issues of different religious sects was also separate during the British era. And gradually, because you cannot introduce the changes at a knee-jerk speed, and that is why the religious groups go on to rebel against such kind of changes. They are reluctant to accept such kind of changes, and that was the same situation in front of the British administration also when they were ruling India. And that is why they also made the incremental changes, the gradual changes. First of all, they started to adjudicate the matters according to the religious laws. Thereafter, gradually they introduced the modern laws in the criminal cases, that's also of high values and heinous crimes, and gradually they introduced it in the other walk of life. And same is the case with the present day government also after independence, right? So let us start the discussion over here. And here, first of all, in the introduction, what is the Uniform Civil Code? So the Uniform Civil Code is the uniform law for every citizen. There will be no separate laws in even the civil matters for different religious sects. Every religious group will have to be governed under the same laws, right? So there will be no differentiation of Muslim personal law board or Parsi personal laws, and every citizen, whether he is a Hindu, he is a Muslim, he is a Christian, he is a Parsi, he is a Buddhist, he is a Jain, he is a Sikh, or whatever it is, they are tribal minorities, whatever it is, all of them will be governed under the single law, Uniform Civil Code, in the civil matters also, right? And we will come to know what kind of civil matters will come under these things. And the same law will be for the every religious people, and many bad practices will end due to the Uniform Civil Code. because the uniform civil code will not be based on the religious faith or religious teachings, but it will be based on the modern moral and ethical values, right? So the modern moral and ethical values will be the backing, will be the principle behind the uniform civil code. क्या अच्छा है क्या बुरा है, that will be the matter. आप अपने धर्म में क्या सोचते हैं, that will not be considered at all, right? So that will be the case. And here currently many states resolve their issues according to their personal laws, and among them the prominent one are Muslims, Christians and Parsi communities have their personal laws, right? And the Hindus, right? Hindus, Sikh, Jains and Buddhists, these four sects come under the Hindu code bill. So all these four sects are considered as Hindus, and there is Hindu code bill that also have four parts, for different parts, that is also not well consolidated. And that is why there may be the case that even the Hindus will go on to rebel against the uniform civil code. There are many such cases also there, because when the Hindu code bill, the bill was brought in India for the Hindus first of all in 1948 in the Constituent Assembly itself, right? But what happened, the religious parties, political parties who were having the religious backing behind them, like the Hindu Mahasabha and the other Hindu extremists or right wingers, they rebelled, they opposed the bill violently, and that is why it was not passed in the Constituent Assembly. And later on what happened, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru had to tone down the content of the text of the Hindu code bill. Earlier the Hindu code bill was in a single part, right? But because of the opposition in the country, and one more thing is that before this Hindu code bill, the Hindu Marriage Act, right? So Hindu code bill was later on bifurcated or divided, you may say that divided into four different parts, and it was passed after that by toning down the issues, toning down the sections of the Hindu code bill. So it was passed in the parliament in 1954, and in 1955 it was notified, and thereafter the Hindu Marriage Act and other things came into existence. So before the enactment of Hindu Marriage Act, even in the Hindus, there was the culture of bigamy or polygamy. But after the Hindu Marriage Act, it became illegal. And there are many cases that in the many of the religious groups, even today, the bigamy and polygamy is prevalent, and that causes too much of pain, mental pain, harassment and other things to the women of that religious group. And that is why it is needed to pass a civil code, uniform civil code, so that the complete women population of the country should have the same right, their rights should be protected, right? So that is the need. Thereafter the second was the Hindu succession bill. Here it defines that how does the ancestral property will be divided among the children, whether they are boy or girl, male or female child, it doesn't matter. So there was a Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act also. In this case, the adoption and maintenance of the parents or the adoption of the child, all these kind of things are regulated. Thereafter, Hindu Minority and the Guardianship Act. Here the rights of the Hindu children and the responsibilities of their guardians and other things are delineated. So earlier it was in a single law, but it was toned down and it was passed in separate laws, right, in 1954. And thereafter this law directly empowered the women. Because of this Hindu Marriage Act, this completely made it illegal that you cannot have a second wife till the time you are in a marriage or your wife is alive. So this was the case, and under these the women get the right to inherit the ancestral property also, and the husband's property also. Earlier this was not the case. Before the passage of this bill, what was the case? That the female child were not getting the share in the property of their parents or their ancestors. But after the passage of this Hindu Succession Acts, Hindu Succession Bill, the women, the female child were also getting the, are also able to get the share in the property. And a person cannot practice bigamy. This is the basic essence that empowered the women. So here two major things were there in the Hindu Code Bill, that the bigamy or the polygamy was abolished, and the right of inheritance was recognized, right? And still in the personal laws of Muslim personal law board, there is no restriction on the marriage, no restriction on the bigamy and the polygamy. Even the case of the triple talaq was also there, teen talaq, which was abolished recently. So here the personal for the Muslims of the country, ठीक है? So this law is being governed by the Personal Law Board, Muslim Personal Law Board, Lucknow, and they govern the civil issues with respect to the family issues of the Muslim community. शादी कैसे होगा, निकाह कैसे होगा, तलाक कैसे होगा, all these kind of things. How does the inheritance will be governed? So these things are prevalent, and the triple talaq was also there, which has got abolished recently, as well as there are other ways of divorce also in the Muslim community. And if you talk about the triple talaq, then many of the Muslim scholars themselves do not recognize, themselves do not recognize it as correct and consider it against the Shariat law. So there is the contradiction among the Muslim community itself about the triple talaq and other methods of divorce, right? And that is why there is need of uniform civil code, right? And why this law is needed in the country. So if we want to talk about the communities, then based on the community, it is going to empower the women. It is going to be beneficial to empower the half of the population. Half of the population of the nation is women. And to ensure the education, to ensure the economic freedom and other things of the women, it is very essential, right? And here, as well as the judiciary is burdened by different laws of different religious sects, because if the case goes to the modern judicial system also, then they also have to adjudicate the issue according to the personal laws of that particular religious sect, that particular religious community. And because of that, there are too much of backlog in front of the judiciary of these cases related to divorce, related to inheritance and other things, right? Now, the cases pending in the country for years will be decided soon, because the uniformity of the civil code will be there. If there is a case of inheritance, straight away the judicial system will be in position to implement the modern laws, and thereafter they will pronounce the verdict, they will give the decree, right? So that will be the case, and there will be one law for all in the matters of marriage, divorce, adoption, division of property. So there will be uniformity of the system, which will reduce the enmity, which will reduce the communal violence, which will reduce the sense of deprivation. Like some of the women are empowered, some of the women are not empowered because of the religious sect rules. So there will be a sense of deprivation that देखो उसको वो मिल रहा है यार, हमको मिल नहीं रहा है. She is wearing the jeans and I am forced to be in the burqa. तो ये जो अपना choice है, the choice of self decision is not there in many religious groups. Even if we want to talk about the Parsi community, then earlier there was also system of parda in the religious sect of Hinduism. In among the Hindus also there was the same system of parda. So it is not the new thing that to be relevant, you have to get modernized, right? It is not the matter of choice, but it is a matter of the need of time. The B.M. Malabari, one of the greatest reformists of the Parsis, he modernized the Parsis considerably in the last decade of 19th century and first decade of 20th century. He introduced too much of the religious reforms, and at that very time the Parsi community became the most westernized community in India. So does the Parsis become extinct? Does it hamper their religious activities? It is not so, right? So uniform civil code is not going to hamper anybody's religious activities. This is not going to be the case. As well as if we talk about the unity of the country, so if the religious identities, religious what we say sects will not be there, religious identification will not be there in the political perspective of the country. So the vote bank politics, right? The political parties will not be in position to practice the vote bank politics, and there will be no polarization of vote. So hereafter what will happen? लोग कह रहे हैं कि ये पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ऐसा कर रही, वो कर रही, दो none of the political party have the guts to put their hand in this furnace of uniform civil code. Many of the political parties have tried since independence. They talk about it, but they are not going to do anything because of the vote bank politics and polarization of vote. And the one who is going to take the initiative, basically they are going to put the axe on their own feet. अपने पैर पे ही कुल्हाड़ी मारने वाले हैं, ऐसा हो सकता है, बिकॉज इसके बाद वो किस चीज पे पोलराइज करेंगे वोट को, किस चीज पे कहेंगे कि भाई अपने लोगों को ये दो, वोट दो, because identification will get diluted, though all of them will get modernized, and the religious identification will become a personal thing, not a thing to show off, because after that उनको कोई एडवांटेज या डिसएडवांटेज नहीं रहेगा, right? So the religious identification will be diluted and the unity in the country will increase, right? And there will be less enmity between the different communities. आइडेंटिफिकेशन ही जब चला जाएगा तो कौन वहां पर जाके हल्ला करेगा कि अरे इसको मार दिया, उसको मार दिया? पता है, एवरीबडी इज गोइंग टू बी एडजुडिकेटेड अकॉर्डिंग टू द सेम लॉज. यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड क्रिमिनल केसेस में ऑलरेडी है. सो जो थोड़ा बहुत बचा हुआ है आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए, दैट विल ऑल्सो बी अबोलिश्ड. So there will be less enmity among the different communities, and this will be a progressive step that will orient the nation towards the development. The development of the nation will be ensured. The pace of the development will increase, and it will improve the status of the women, because the women's rights are limited in the personal laws of some religious sects. And if we specifically go on to talk, then in the Muslim communities the women have very less right. ठीक है, आजकल तो कुछ कुछ चैनल्स भी ऐसे चल रहे हैं जिसमें कि उन चीजों को उजागर भी किया जा रहा है, राइट? Thereafter women will get the right in their father's property also, right? So in many of the religious sects the women are not entitled to inherit the ancestral property, so they will get the right to inherit the ancestral property also. Similar rules will apply in all the cases like adoption, divorce, marriages, etc. Right? So there will be uniformity of the women's rights. ऐसा नहीं है कि एक women को कुछ right है दूसरे को कुछ नहीं है. तो that differentiation will be eradicated. Now in which countries there are uniform civil codes? आज कुछ ज़्यादा ही बैक पे जा रहे हैं नहीं, ठीक है? सो ऑलरेडी यहाँ पर देखेंगे जितने भी यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड वाले कंट्रीज है, ऑल ऑफ देम आर द इस्लामिस्ट कंट्रीज, राइट, फ्रॉम टॉप टू बॉटम. सो हियर the Shariat laws or the laws according to the Muslim Islamist religion is being implemented in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Turkey, Indonesia, Sudan, Egypt, etc. So all these are the Islamist countries, and in some of the modern Western European countries also the uniform civil code exists. But to mention these specific nations is a motive, that to show that wherever the some of the particular religious group is in majority, then they are imposing their own law on the other religious minority groups, and they have implemented the uniform civil code, and that too, that is not progressive. If you go on to read their own uniform civil code, like in Bangladesh there is the law of blasphemy also, right? In Bangladesh, in Pakistan, you cannot criticize the politicians, otherwise कहाँ पहुँचेंगे ना वो आपको भी पता है, right? But this is going to be a progressive system of uniform civil code in India, and that is quite obvious. And if we go on to talk about other facts of the uniform civil code, then the minority communities consider the uniform civil code as the violation of section article 25 of the Constitution of India, where it provides the right to regulate their religious practices. But the civil code is not a religious practice. The matter of inheritance in the property, the matter of bigamy and other things is not a religious practice. It is a social practice. रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिस में आप फूल बेलपत्र चढ़ाते हो, या आप अगरबत्ती दिखाते हो, या चादर चढ़ाते हो, या कैंडल जलाते हो, दैट इज द रिलीजियस प्रैक्टिस. इन दैट द यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड इज नॉट गोइंग टू डू एनीथिंग. It is going to do in the social aspects of the life, in the marital aspects of the life, where half of the Indian population is concerned, right? The women are concerned. So this is not going to be the issue. This is not going to be the violation of the Article 25, and its supporters are calling the lack of uniform civil code as the violation of Article 14. That is true, right? So the state cannot discriminate based on the religion, race, caste, sex, gender, whatever it is. ठीक है, प्लेस ऑफ बर्थ, ये सब चीजों पे the state cannot discriminate, but the personal law board is a classic case of discrimination in such cases, right? And here, can the cultural diversity be compromised? Two questions will arise in the mind of every citizen of India who is critical of such issues, who are having a questionable mind in the sense नहीं कि उनके माइंड पे कोई क्वेश्चन उठा देना है, who are capable of rational thinking and who are capable of raising the voice against any ill deed or ill practice. So they will talk about these two questions, right? First of all, can the cultural diversity be compromised to such an extent that the territorial integrity becomes a threat? What does it mean? So in the name of the cultural diversity, preserving the cultural diversity, can you give so much of the liberty to the citizens of the nation that in future there will be polarization, there will be regionalism, there will be communalism, which may impact the integrity of the nation as a whole? The integrity will be at threat. So this cannot be done. So the cultural diversity to some extent is going to be preserved, and it should be preserved because the cultural identity is the signature of any region, signature of any nation. That how much accommodative we are, but in the name of accommodating the cultural diversity, in the name of preserving the cultural diversity, the nation itself cannot be compromised. The existence of the nation as a whole cannot be compromised, right? So these kind of things should not be done. And here, does a unified nation need the equality so much that we ignore the beauty of diversity, is the next question against the first question. Okay, Thus, a unified nation, a nation as a whole, in the name of equality, can ignore the beauty of diversity. So in the name of equality, the people of different religious sects, people of different communities, people of different regions should be forced to follow a same law. So why can't it be? If it is justified in the constitution itself, it is written that the fundamental rights itself can be curtailed on specific occasions or based on the reason, based on the situation, right? Right to equality itself is limited in case of the reservation, but in case of the criminal activities, the right to equality will be same for everybody. So here should be some reasoning behind not following the equality, the principle of equality in the court of law, equal protection of law and equal treatment in front of the judiciary. And here it is said that the Article 14, the supporters say that the Article 14 is the classic example that why should we have the uniform civil code. Here it says that right to equality before law and equal protection of the law should be there, and that will be ensured through the uniform civil code to every citizen. Next is the Article 15. Here Article 15 itself says that there should be restriction on the discrimination. The state cannot discriminate against any citizen on the basis of religion, caste, gender, place of birth, etc. So Article 14 and 15 clearly gives the basis for the implementation of Uniform Civil Code, as well as if we talk on the Article 21, that is right to protection of life and privacy. So here the Article 21 is being presented by the people who are criticizing the Uniform Civil Code along with Article 25 of the Indian Constitution, that is of the religious freedom, that right to protection of life and privacy. So the privacy and life, they are saying that this is our way of life and all those kind of things. However, here right to protection of life and privacy, in under that already there are various other things that are included by the Supreme Court, which are getting violated by the personal laws that are applicable in the country. So whatever they are showing in support, they will get that will get against them itself, right? Next, this is not only threatens the gender equality, but the social equality in question is on question also. So the personal laws already violate the gender equality. It is a threat to the gender equality, and mostly the women are getting discriminated, as well as the social equality, because the women of all the communities, all the religious sects are not having equal status in the society. So the social equality is also under threat due to the personal laws, and that is why there should be the uniform civil code, right? Next, this is not in consonance with the constitutional values, because the constitution, if we talk about the constitution only, then the constitution itself is the governing law of the land. It is the fundamental law of land, and under that itself Article 44 says that the directive principle of state policies, DPSP, itself guides, itself directs the government that the government should strive to bring in the uniform civil code. Okay, so here it is the violation of the Article 44 itself, and that is why there should be introduction of the uniform civil code, enactment of the uniform civil code, right? Now, what are the oppositions against it? So all of them cite the Article 25 itself. Always already we have discussed about this, that the constitution has given them the right to religious freedom to all the citizens of the country. But does the divorce is a religious matter? Does the right to inherit the property is a religious matter? In which religion you will find such a classic case that the women will not have the right? So that is not a religious matter, that is a civil matter. Therefore, imposing the same law on all is against the constitutional values. दस एक आर्टिकल लेके वो लोग पीछे पड़े रहेंगे, ठीक है. And according to the Muslim scholars, Sharia law is 1400 years old, as this law is based on the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. But with the passage of time, there were changes that were introduced in all the religious sects, right? Western countries which are follower of Christianity or are not being governed, their laws are not being enacted in accordance with the Bible or whatever they go on to follow, right? So the in Indian case, the Hindu society is not being governed according to the Manusmriti. It is not applicable universally. Then the Buddhist will also say that the Madhyam Marg. So simply we will go on to say that कि बीच का रास्ता चुनो, ये लड़ा दोनों जाते लेने, हम शांति से रहते हैं, be neutral. So that is the not the case, that according to the historical aspects only any of the liberties of the citizens of India can be curtailed in a particular religious sect, right? So all the women who are follower of religious sect of Islam are the citizen of India, and they should have the equal rights. All the Christian women are also all the Parsi women are also the citizens of India, so they should have equal rights as it is available to the other women of other religious sects, as well as equal to the men also. So there will be no gender biased laws at all. Uniform civil code will be equal for everybody. There will be no discrimination with respect to religion, caste or sex, right? So that is going to be the case. And at present only Goa is the state, and that too Goa was having the uniform civil code during the Portuguese rule itself. It is not that the Indian government, when Goa was liberated thereafter, a government that was formed after popular election in Goa that had enacted a uniform civil code. But the uniform civil code in Goa is in existence since the Portuguese rule itself. So they were modernized at that very time itself, right? And when the Hindu Code Bill was introduced in the Constituent Assembly in 1948, a strong opposition was there against the bill. Specifically, Madan Mohan Malviya from the Hindu Mahasabha was the opposer of this Code Bill, and he had said that it is an attack on the Hindu religion. It is going to curtail the freedom of Hindu religion, and the government is introducing a law, a bill specifically targeting a religious sect. What is the case right now with the other religious groups? The same case was there also, but with the passage of time, the the Hindu religious group community became so acclimatized with the new code bill that now they are okay with it, right? So with the passage of time, the other religious sects will also accommodate with the uniform civil code. That is not going to be the case at all, that they will not accept it, right? And the bill was termed as an attack, और those ये सारी चीजें तो हम लोगों ने already ये कर ली है. However, when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was trying to tone down the essence of the nature of the Hindu Code Bill, then B.R. Ambedkar opposed it and he had resigned. He said that कि इसको इसी फॉर्म में इतनी इफिकेसी के साथ इम्प्लीमेंट करना चाहिए, इनैक्ट करना चाहिए, बट Nehru was not in support of such thing because of fear of losing the next general election. He was not going to take the worth of, to let the worth of the Hindu community to be on him, and that is why he toned down the Hindu Code Bill. So what should be done? What is the possibilities in the future? So here the Indian Constitution advocates about the Uniform Civil Code, right? The similar laws and that is written already under Article 44 of the Constitution, as we have discussed. And when there is one law for all the communities in the criminal matters, then why cannot it be in the case of the civil matters, right? And in the absence of the reforms in the personal laws, neither the condition of the women is getting better in some communities, not they are getting an opportunity to live with dignity. Still they are in a deplorable condition. They are considered as the subservient to the male counterparts. So that is the case, and this is not only the violation of the constitution right like equality, but also it is the violation of the personal liberties also, right? And here the initiatives like the social reforms will also be successful if there will be the uniform civil code, क्योंकि पता रहेगा now we don't have that much of the religious backing in matter of law to suppress them, so they will let it to be the modernized community और धीरे धीरे changes भी आ जाएंगे, right? And the initiative to implement the uniform law in the country should be taken with anonymity, ठीक है? Anonymous जो ये है सपोर्ट है should be there of the political parties, every political party, every religious sect, every communal community and the other so should support the UCC, so that there should not be a sense of being suppressed or being sidelined, right? And there is a need to avoid such efforts which lead to the society on the path of polarization and pose a challenge to the social harmony. So this should also not be the case. There should be the communal harmony even after social harmony, even after enactment of uniform civil code. तो पहले से सबको कॉन्फिडेंस में रखिए. There should be the consultation with all the sects, all the religious sects, communities and the political groups, so that there should not be a sense that they are getting suppressed, they are getting imposed with some of the alien kind of laws. This should not be the case, right? So here we finish off our discussion, and if you like the video, please go on to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload such kind of videos. Do follow us on our Facebook and Instagram handles. This is our Telegram channel where we will provide the PDFs of such kind of videos now onwards. So the PDF will also be available, and do download our app. There we will find various courses related to the state civil services as well as the UPSC, and the same thing is available on our website also. Here we finish off. Thank you very much and stay connected.